Hello and welcome back to another panel discussion with New Catholic Generation. I'm David from the YouTube channel Catholic Contrast. I'm joined by a new guest, Catherine, who is a double major in
political science and journalism.
And then we have another guest, a panelist, Joe D'Antona, who is known for yelling things on Facebook.
Yes.
Catholic memes specifically.
Well, every once in a while. Yeah. I'm also a political science major too, so there's that. Didn't do the double.
And Catherine actually yells at people in real life.
Yes.
That's true. Yeah.
Yells on Facebook, yells in real life.
Yes.
And then we have Renee from Reborn Pure, which I don't think I've ever heard yell in her life.
I don't think I yell at all.
Let's see if we can change that today.
Yeah. So we recently got a comment from R Bear that said, I would like to see less reaction and reviews and more Catholic views on news and explain vids. Important issues that get lost in the big news. Hopefully news. I think your youthful style would bring life to these issues. And one of the topics that R Bear names is the Panama Papers. Which I know. So for people who don't know, what exactly are the Panama Papers?
Yeah, who, what, when, where? I know nothing.
The Panama Papers are basically, it's this set of documents, and as far as I know, they haven't really even gotten into the meat of them yet, that implicate different powerful people across the world in sort of shady business dealings. And it was sort of funneled through, it looks like a bank in Panama.
So basically, like, the concept of it is it's tax evasion.
Right.
And the way they do it is there's a bunch of fake companies that you basically you pay your money to,
Right.
and then you can just claim that as, I'm just, business expenses on your
Right.
tax receipts, but they don't actually do anything with it, and you're just like holding it in a secret location. And then the Panama Papers are the collective result of dozens and dozens of journalists all across the world gathering all the names of the
Right.
people who actually have used these fake business services for tax evasion.
What's interesting on that is like that the leaktivism aspect as a journalism major. It's been underground journalism for so long, people trying to get different leads, and Edward Snowden came out and said it was like the biggest leak in leaktivism yet. So not only is it a big blow to a lot of powerful people for tax evasion, but it's also a big milestone for journalism, particularly rights-oriented journalism.
So the actual numbers are, it's 11.5 million leaked documents that detail financial and attorney-client information for more than 214,000 offshore entities. And the leaked documents illustrate how many wealthy individuals, including public officials, are able to keep personal financial information private. And it's a big deal because it includes names such as the President of Argentina, the King of Saudi Arabia, the President of the United Arab Emirates, and the President of Ukraine. Actually, I remember seeing the President of Ukraine, and he was like really... There's that one interview he did where he
they
just
nailed
walked
him,
out.
right? Yeah.
They nailed him. And includes also other people like former heads of state, former heads of government, sports personalities, entertainment persons. Emma Watson.
Oh yeah, Emma Watson showing up.
Jackie Chan, I think, as well. So, what exactly does this mean, Catherine?
What does it mean? We're the Antilles.
Well, I think what you said is that
We're the Antilles.
Panama Papers
this is
are the
a
marketing.
huge issue.
Yeah.
And that, I know, as we're laughing about it.
Well, like you have two. Okay, first of all, you have like two options when you talk about politics and journalism and like money and the soul and human rights. Sometimes it's like laugh or cry. So like if you can't do anything about it, you might as well laugh, because if you cry, then the bad people win. So anyway, continue. Sorry.
That is one of the best points I've ever heard about politics.
It's so true, because a lot of times I'll just be laughing when I should be like, I'm inside, I'm like, "Rrr."
Yeah. So could you do that face again? There you go. That's exactly how I
The beard
feel.
really exaggerates it. I like it.
Here's Rivers.
Yes.
No.
Make a meme.
But
It's
then I was
magnificent.
talking with you earlier, and you said that, this is an issue that older people are talking about, but the youth, like, there's no discussion on it at all.
Right. And there really hasn't been. Some of my friends at other colleges have been involved in discussion on the Panama Papers, but it's because they're social working majors, and like that's not. You can't take a news event like that and regulate it to a discipline. I haven't heard or really seen anything on my friends' websites or Facebooks or Twitters or anything about the Panama Papers and how upset they are that these people that are supposed to be creating just and flourishing civil societies are being accused of tax evasion, or that celebrities are also involved, and whether or not they're also committing tax evasion has yet to be seen. And that's really upsetting, honestly, because our entire country is so heck bent on talking about social justice all the freaking time, like we were talking about earlier, in some sentimental, like, distortion of mercy and love, but then we don't want to actually talk about an issue that is actively preventing that kind of civilization that actually is just and loving from coming about. Like, that's not fruitful. Like Joe said earlier, we're also petty, talking about like who can use which bathroom and like what's the appropriate amount of bread to give out on the street corner, and like all these different things that like seem like real critical issues, when something comes up that we as youth have a power to comment on in an educated manner, if we did some research on it and actually begin to continue to vote and have thoughtful discussions and the like, and then actually maybe make educated guesses about how to do real works of mercy and become adults in a responsible way, living out Catholic social principles and accurately talking about the world and the environment we're living in a real way, not in a pessimistic way, but in a real way.
Yeah.
And we don't take those opportunities. Like
Yeah.
I talked to a student about the Panama Papers briefly, and granted, I'm no expert, but they didn't even know what they were. And then when they found out, they were like, "Oh, that sucks." It's like, well, it does suck,
Well,
but you understand what that means for you, right? And like they understand what that means going forward.
Yeah, we're in a society that likes to keep scrolling.
Yeah.
That's exactly it.
Exactly.
A large part of it is an attention span problem. So
Oh,
something
yeah.
like the Panama Papers, it's not as simple as, this guy said X and it's offensive and people are upset. And so what do you think about it? This is something you have to parse through. You have to read about. It takes hours to get a handle on it, minimum, right?
Right.
And people really don't like that, especially in
No,
our
we're in a
generation.
society, we see social media, it's an entertainment platform. It's supposed to make us feel good about ourselves and have fun. So when we go in there, we don't do as much research. Well, when they put real news in there, in that kind of a platform, it's not what people are looking for to give them that lift in the day after having a stressful day at work or whatever it is. So they can't like research into the news properly because there's so much distracting from it online for one, and just of our desire, what we're going to the internet for in the first place. It's that inward looking we talked about before, that we're not focusing outward of ourselves.
So what do you think would be the best thing to do as a younger person or as a youth in response to a news item such as the
What do I
Panama
think?
Papers? Yeah.
Well, not cry. I think that the best thing to do is to break out of the liking phenomenon and start expanding your attention span. Not in a critical way. It really is an environmental thing. We've all been raised in a world that teaches us to have short attention spans, even when we're talking to our most loved friends and family. I think the best thing to do is to see the fact that we don't know anything about the Panama Papers, really, and that not everybody on the street can give you a 5-minute summary of what it means, as a challenge to go figure out what's going on. Go do some real research on it. Set a timer for 15 minutes and go pull up some major news sources and actually educate yourself, because it's going to have an impact on the way you live, especially if the president of Ukraine is in there. Like, have you seen the way our country and the Ukraine has been interacting, or Russia and Ukraine has been interacting lately? The fact that a major world leader is now a part of this is a huge deal, and that should impact what you think about the presidential election. And if you're voting, then that's important for you.
What would be great is if there's somebody would make a clickbait website with actual news.
No,
You will never guess what happened with the president of
Like-
Ukraine,
Yeah.
And people will be like, what? What happened? And then, it brings them to, that would be
7
wonderful.
things said.
Exactly, yeah.
The Panama Papers,
Yeah.
It's
number
true.
212,437, will shock you.
He embezzled money, and you will not guess her reaction. That would be fantastic,
That would be
because at least then you can sort of work with the weakness. But
Yeah.
yeah,
We gotta ease people out of it.
yeah.
But the first step to fixing it is recognizing there's a problem.
Yes,
So
exactly.
Hopefully that with this video where you were like, oh, cool, they put out a new video, fun. And then you got a bunch of information you weren't expecting.
you'll
I
never
really-
believe what they talked about.
I really,
That'll be the title. You won't believe what we're talking about today.
I seriously wonder how long it's going to be till we have a 12-step program for the internet. I do, because maybe there is
12
already
steps
is
to get you off the internet.
Yeah.
More
yeah.
clickbait.
Did you know that there are mirror neurons in the brain? And I'm quoting a friend who actually knows science. But certain parts of the brain, the addictive centers, light up when you engage in certain amounts of media or video gaming. And with that, when the more media you take in, the more your communication patterns begin to mirror the media they're consuming. So when children would learn behavioral skills in their families around the dinner table, they're now learning from the television or from their phones or from our presidential candidates.
Everything my mother ever said is right.
And you'll never believe what she said.
Yeah.
But yeah, isn't that weird?
Yeah, I'm wondering if the same areas of the brain or whatever are lit up by news stories like they are with so many other things on the internet, and whether the addictive substance is rolling out the news just by things in the brain too. Like, that's all I'm thinking of since you said that. Crazy.
I think you said you had a way to tie this back into Catholic teaching.
Yeah, this whole thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it kind of goes back to what Joe said about the neighbor. Because we live in such an international community.
Yeah.
I personally believe that we're not doing our duty as Catholics if we don't pay attention to what's going on. So with the Panama Papers, if we don't know what's going on, even factually, then we can't make an educated decision about how to behave in our own political climate in order to respect the dignity of the human person and do justice to ourselves and our neighbors. So that's a little bit of Catholic. But on a wider scale, especially in the Jubilee Year of Mercy, we often fall into this gross sentimentality when we think of mercy. And so maybe the gut reaction because of that gross sentimentality of like when someone sins, it's like, oh, it's okay. Like, actually, it's not okay that you just did that. Like, you're not okay, and I'm not okay. But it's okay because we're both children of God and we're loved in our weakness and our sinfulness. And not only that, but he gives us the grace in the sacrament of confession to be fully healed of that sin and walk away completely new. So, like, I think that, and I know that this doesn't seem like it relates to the Panama Papers, but I'm getting there, okay? So given that we live in a world that even in the Jubilee Year of Mercy applies sentimentality as opposed to real firm, encouraging mercy that encourages you to, like, recognize where you're weak, but accept the love to build you up. Our first reaction to Panama Papers is to be like, oh, the president of Argentina was involved. Well, it's all right. Someone else will deal with it. Yeah, like, whatever. Like, it's fine. It's fine. It's not a big deal. It's fine. And it's not fine. The president of Argentina was named in the Panama Papers. That isn't fine. And if Catholics get into a habit of saying it's fine about everything, then we're not recognizing the fact that we live in a moral universe. So even if we don't have an intense emotional or heartfelt response to it, I think that it's important that we can look at things that happen in the news and say, that is objectively not okay.
Yeah.
And I might not be able to do anything about it, but I recognize that that thing that happened, completely independent of me and outside of me, that impacts my brothers and sisters in Christ, in the mystical body of Christ, united in the church, or people that I hope will come to the true faith, is not okay. And I'm going to say that to myself so that if I have to, I can say it in public.
Right there.
And I can tell you why.
No, that's it right there. See,
Right.
the biggest thing about it is it's not about so much what you can do about it, it's about what it should do to you.
Yes.
Right? And how that shapes you as a person.
Yes.
And so every action and reaction you have, it does something to your soul. It does something to your psychology. And it changes fundamentally who you are in the sense of your character, of how you act. And so if you look at something like this, and this doesn't make you nearly as upset as that time Kanye West interrupted Taylor Swift, you have a problem.
Yeah.
You have a problem because you care about the wrong things.
You do.
You know? So I think you really nailed it there. I think that's the fundamental core of the issue, is that it's about what it does to you, not necessarily about, I mean, it is about what it does to other people.
It is.
But in the sense of it warranting a reaction from you.
Right, and not necessarily even one in your emotions, like,
Right.
but like one in the deep core
Right.
of your being where you're just like, oh, that isn't okay.
Right. I acknowledge that an evil thing has happened. It should not have happened. And if there's no way I can do anything about it, that's fine. I can pray that
Right.
something's done about it. I can tell other people that this is a bad thing and something
Right.
should be done about it.
But I won't look away.
But I'm not going to look away
Yeah.
because that's to make it okay.
Though, actually, like, real quick, one more thing. When you were talking, it reminded me of something I'd heard in a class about how we just kind of tend to float through life really passively. But we don't really realize that everything that goes on either shapes us or we shape it. Like, we're not static and we don't live in a vacuum. So we're always rubbing against one another. Our characters, like our tones of voice. People flinch at things. Like, I could yell at someone in public and, like, have great intentions. Or you could yell at someone on the internet and have great intentions. But they're going to react to us.
Right.
Not what we're saying first.
Right.
Yeah.
So if we as Catholics don't take an active role in forming some kind of self-consciousness, coming to know who we are, what we stand for, where we're going, and then taking active steps every day and deciding how we're going to get there, which should be heaven, our own salvation, beatific vision, the sanctification, and bringing as many people along with us as we can, then everything else around us, the media, other people, like the random noise we hear in the cars when we just turn the radio on and zone out when we're driving. Everything is going to shape us. And in 10 years, you're going to look up and say, wow, like, the Panama Papers just happened and I don't care. And I don't want to care. And that is bad for us as a church, and it's bad for our souls, and it's bad because modernism is a huge thing, and you should read the encyclical against modernists if you haven't. But it's really bad, and when you, especially in America, like, Catholics really need to be careful about apathy. Yeah, not driving ourselves crazy because we can't fix everything, but we need to be careful because apathy and lukewarmness are real things.
Yeah, no, C.S. Lewis has a point where he talks about heaven and hell, and he says, well, you may look at someone and say, well, he's not a very good person, but why would he go to hell simply for rejecting God? And what Lewis says is, well, you see, he makes these little choices every day, and if you look at them in a short period, you might say, well, okay, that's not that big a deal, it's not good, but it's not that bad. But the thing is, if you believe that a person goes on forever, think if they had made those little choices over and over again for 1,000,000 years, and then 1,000,000,000 years, and now think about what kind of a person they would be. And then think about somebody who's made little good choices for 1,000,000 years, and think about what kind of person they become. But the thing is, it's even faster than that.
Yeah.
It happens to you it can happen to you over weeks. It can happen to you over days sometimes, depending on what's going on in your life. And that's why it matters to react to these things appropriately.
And that's why it matters, too, to go to the sacrament of reconciliation.
Yeah.
Because we believe that as much as those things do shape us in our past, when we go to the sacrament of reconciliation,
Yeah.
wiped clean, totally
Yep.
clean, and we have a new ground on which to begin to reconstruct our characters, in a sense, through grace.
Yeah.
So.
I tell my pastor I need to bring him around with me, like, just for every hour on the hour kind of thing. Maybe I'll get there, Father.
Mortal sins make God angry.
I-
Venial sins make God nervous.
Yes. Well. Oh, my.
Yeah.
Just think of the convenience, Bless me, Father, I've sinned. Well, you saw it. All right, what do I do now?
All right, well, thank you for watching another panel discussion, and we'll see you in the next video.
Bye, guys. Thanks
Bye.
for watching.